The metal doors of the prisoner transport bay slid open with a harsh grinding sound. Commander Zexthul stepped inside, his massive reptilian form casting long shadows across the floor. His scaled skin gleamed under the bright lights, and his yellow eyes swept over the collection of captured aliens huddled in the corner. The Catherian commander stood nearly 9 feet tall. His thick arms ended in clawed hands that could crush steel. Sharp teeth lined his jaw, and bone ridges ran along his skull like a crown. He wore the dark blue uniform of the Catherian military, decorated with medals from dozens of conquered worlds. What pathetic creatures do we have today? Zexthul asked his second-in-command, Lieutenant Vexkar. His voice was deep and rumbling, like distant thunder. 23 prisoners from the skirmish near the Centauri system, Commander, Vexkar replied. He held a data pad in his smaller but still formidable claws, mostly from that cargo vessel we destroyed. Some appear to be from species we have not encountered before. Zexthul walked slowly among the prisoners, most coward as he passed. There were several Arcturus miners with their blue-gray skin and large black eyes. A few red-skinned Martian colonists sat together, whispering in their native language. 2 tall, thin Proxima traders tried to make themselves invisible against the wall. Then Zexthul saw something that made him stop and stare. In the far corner sat a creature unlike any he had seen before. It was small, maybe 6 feet tall when standing. Its skin was a pale pink color with no scales or natural armor. It had thin arms and legs with no visible claws. Short brown hair covered the top of its head, and strange blue eyes looked up at him. The creature was breathing hard. Its chest rose and fell rapidly, and sweat covered its face. It looked exhausted and scared. Its clothes were torn and dirty from the battle. What is this thing? Zexthul asked, pointing at the strange creature. Unknown species, Commander. It was found on the cargo ship's bridge. No weapons on it when we captured it. Seems harmless enough. Zexthul laughed to sound like rocks grinding together. Harmless, look at it. It has no claws, no fangs, no armor. Its skin looks soft enough to tear with a gentle touch. He leaned down closer to the creature. What are you, little thing? The creature looked up at him but said nothing. Its blue eyes seemed to take in everything around them. Zexthul noticed the creature's gaze quickly move to the guards, the doors, the security cameras, then back to him. It won't speak, Commander, said Sergeant Klytor, one of the guards. We tried questioning it during transport. It just sits there and stares. Probably too stupid to understand us, Zexthul said. He stood back up to his full height. Or too scared. Look at how it shakes. The truth was, the creature was not shaking from fear. Marcus Chen, former sergeant in Earth's Special Forces, was controlling his breathing to appear weak, while his trained mind catalogued every detail of his surroundings. He had counted 6 guards so far, 2 by the main door, 2 by the smaller exit, and 2 walking patrol routes. All carried plasma rifles. The ceiling had 4 security cameras covering different angles. Marcus had let himself be captured on purpose. His mission was to infiltrate this Catherian ship and gather intelligence about their military capabilities. The nanites in his bloodstream were already beginning their work, slowly spreading through the ship's ventilation system, but that would take time. For now, he needed to play the role of a weak, frightened prisoner. Put it in cell block 7, Zexthul ordered. Standard security should be more than enough for this fragile creature. Should we put restraints on it, Commander? Asked Vexkar. Zexthul looked at Marcus again and laughed even louder. Restraints? For this soft thing, look at its tiny muscles. I could break it in half with one hand. Save the restraints for prisoners that might actually pose a threat. 2 guards moved forward to escort Marcus to his cell. He stood up slowly, making sure to stumble slightly as if weak from exhaustion. One guard grabbed his arm to steady him, and Marcus felt how strong the alien was. These Catherians were indeed powerful creatures built for war and conquest. As they walked through the ship's corridors, Marcus observed everything. The walls were thick metal, designed to withstand space combat. The floors had a non-slip surface that would make running difficult. Emergency blast doors were positioned every 50 meters. The ship was built like a fortress. They passed other crew members in the hallways. All were Catherians, all large and intimidating. They looked at Marcus with curiosity and amusement. Some pointed and made what sounded like jokes in their language. To them, he was just another weak creature from a conquered world. The cell block was located deep inside the ship. The cells were simple metal boxes with force field barriers instead of doors. Each one was barely large enough for a Catherian to lie down. For Marcus, it felt almost spacious. "Enjoy your new home, little creature," one of the guards said as he activated the force field. "Commander Zexthul will probably want to question you tomorrow. Try not to die of fear before then." The guards walked away, laughing among themselves. Marcus was left alone in his cell, surrounded by the quiet hum of the ship's engines. He sat down on the hard metal bench and closed his eyes, but he was not resting. His enhanced hearing picked up conversations from the crew. His mind began building a map of the ship's layout based on the sounds of footsteps and machinery. The nanites in his system sent back data about the ship's atmosphere and basic systems. Most importantly, Marcus was learning about his captors. The Catherians were proud warriors who valued physical strength above all else. They believed that bigger and stronger always meant better. Their entire society was built around the idea that might makes right. This was exactly what Marcus had hoped for. His commanding officers on Earth had studied reports about the Catherians for months. They knew that these aliens would underestimate humans based on physical appearance alone. That prejudice would become their weakness. Hours passed. Guards came by twice to check on the prisoners, but they barely glanced at Marcus. To them, he was the least dangerous thing on the ship. They were more worried about the Proxima traders, who were known for their escape attempts, or the Arcturus miners, who could tunnel through metal with their natural abilities. Late in the ship's night cycle, when most of the crew was asleep, Marcus finally allowed himself a small smile. The first phase of his mission was complete. He was inside the enemy ship, undetected and underestimated. The nanites were beginning to map the ship's computer systems. Soon he would know everything about this vessel and its crew. Commander Zexthul slept peacefully in his quarters, confident that his ship held nothing but broken enemies and weak creatures. He had no idea that one of those weak creatures was already planning his downfall. Marcus Chen closed his eyes and began to meditate, preparing his mind and body for what was to come. Tomorrow, the real mission would begin. The next morning, Marcus was awakened by the sound of heavy footsteps approaching his cell. 3 guards stood outside the force field barrier, led by the same sergeant from yesterday. "Time to meet the commander, soft skin," Sergeant Clytor said. He deactivated the force field and gestured for Marcus to come out. "Move slowly. Any sudden movements and we will stun you." Marcus stood up carefully, making sure to appear stiff and sore from sleeping on the hard metal bench. He stumbled slightly as he walked, keeping up his act of being weak and harmless. The guards flanked him as they walked through the ship's corridors. Other crew members stopped their work to stare as they passed. Word had spread about the strange new creature in the cells. Some made clicking sounds that might have been laughter. Others just shook their large heads in what looked like pity. The interrogation room was located near the ship's command center. It was a small windowless chamber with metal walls and bright lights. A single table sat in the center with 2 chairs on opposite sides. The larger chair was clearly designed for a Catherian. The smaller one looked uncomfortable and unstable. Marcus was pushed into the smaller chair. The guards took positions by the door, their plasma rifles ready. The room was silent except for the constant hum of the ship's engines. Then the door opened and Commander Zexthul entered. Up close, the Catherian commander was even more impressive and terrifying. His scaled hide bore scars from countless battles. His yellow eyes seemed to glow in the bright lights. When he sat down across from Marcus, the metal chair creaked under his massive weight. "So," Zexthul said, his voice filling the small room, "the mysterious creature finally gets to meet me properly." He leaned forward, resting his large arms on the table. "I am Commander Zexthul of the Catherian Empire, and you are going to tell me everything about your pathetic species." Marcus kept his eyes down, trying to look scared. In reality, he was studying every detail of the room. The walls had no visible weapons or security devices. The door had a simple electronic lock. Most importantly, there was a ventilation grate near the ceiling that looked large enough for him to fit through if needed. I don't understand," Marcus said in a weak voice. "Please don't hurt me." Zexthul laughed, the sound echoing off the metal walls. "Hurt you? Little creature, I could crush your skull between my fingers without effort. But I don't want to hurt you. I want information." The commander stood up and began walking around the table. His footsteps were heavy and deliberate, designed to intimidate. "Your ship was carrying cargo from multiple star systems. You were not just random travelers. You were part of some kind of network." Marcus said nothing, but his mind was working fast. The Catherians had attacked a human supply convoy carrying resources to the outer colonies. But they didn't know about the convoy's real purpose, which was to deliver quantum weapon components to the military research station at Kepler 442. "What is your species called?" Zexthul demanded. "Where do you come from?" We call ourselves humans," Marcus whispered. "We come from a world called Earth." "Humans," Zexthul repeated, testing the word. "And how many of you are there? How many worlds do you control?" Marcus pretended to think hard, as if the questions were difficult to understand. I don't know exactly. Many worlds. Maybe 50 or 60 colonies. It was a lie. Humanity controlled over 200 star systems now. But Marcus wanted the Catherians to underestimate human space. The commander nodded, seeming satisfied with what he thought was complete honesty from a frightened prisoner. 50 or 60, Zexthul mused. A minor species, then. Good. That will make conquest easier. He sat back down and stared directly at Marcus. "Tell me about your military." "How many ships?" "What weapons do you use?" We don't have much of a military," Marcus lied again. "Mostly just cargo ships and small patrol vessels. We try to avoid fighting." This was exactly what Zexthul wanted to hear. His species respected only strength and military power. A peaceful race with few weapons would be easy prey for the Catherian Empire. "Of course you avoid fighting," the commander said with contempt. "Look at you. You have no claws, no natural armor, no fangs. You are built for weakness, not war." As the interrogation continued, Marcus fed the commander carefully chosen lies mixed with small truths. He made humanity sound weak and unprepared for war. He described human colonies as lightly defended and poorly organized. With each lie, Zexthul became more confident and more talkative. "Soon the Empire will visit your human worlds," the commander boasted. "We will take your resources and add your people to our slave populations. Those who resist will be eliminated. Those who submit will serve." Marcus allowed his face to show horror, as if this was the first time he had heard of such plans. Inside, he was memorizing every word. This information would be valuable to Earth's military commanders. "Our current mission will help ensure your species' quick defeat," Zexthul continued. "We carry weapons from your own colonies taken from worlds we have already conquered. Quantum disruptors that will tear through your ships like paper." Marcus's heart raced, but he kept his expression neutral. The quantum weapons were real then, and they were on this ship. His mission had just become much more important. "Please," Marcus begged, "can't you just let us live in peace? We don't want to fight anyone." "Peace?" Zexthul stood up again, his full height casting a shadow over Marcus. "Peace is for the weak. The strong take what they want. This is the way of the universe." The commander began describing Catherian military philosophy, their battle tactics, and their plans for expanding the empire. He spoke with pride about worlds they had conquered and species they had enslaved. To him, Marcus was just a broken creature who posed no threat. There was no harm in sharing information with someone who would soon be dead or enslaved. Marcus listened carefully to every word. The commander was giving him details about Catherian fleet movements, military bases, and weapon capabilities. This was intelligence that Earth's strategists could only dream of obtaining. During a break in the questioning, one of the guards approached and whispered something to Zexthul. The commander's expression grew annoyed. "Sir," the guard said, "Chief Engineer Mortax reports some minor system glitches throughout the ship. Nothing serious, but he wanted you to be aware." Zexthul waved a dismissive hand. "Probably just routine maintenance issues. These older ships always have small problems. Tell Mortax to handle it and stop bothering me with trivial matters." Marcus had to concentrate hard to keep from smiling. The nanites in his bloodstream had been spreading through the ship's ventilation system for over 18 hours now. They were designed to integrate with alien computer systems slowly and carefully, avoiding detection while mapping out the ship's entire network. "Where were we?" Zexthul asked, turning back to Marcus. "Ah, yes, I was explaining why your species is doomed." The interrogation continued for another hour. Marcus played his role perfectly, appearing more and more broken with each threat and boast from the commander. By the end, Zexthul was completely convinced that he understood this human creature and its weak species. "Take it back to its cell," the commander finally ordered. "Tomorrow I will decide what to do with it. Perhaps I will keep it as a pet, as an example of human weakness." As the guards escorted Marcus back through the corridors, he allowed himself to feel satisfied with his progress. The nanites were working perfectly, mapping the ship's systems and preparing for the next phase. The commander had given him valuable intelligence about Cytherian plans and capabilities. Most importantly, Zexthul completely believed that Marcus was just a weak, frightened creature from a species of cowards. That belief would soon prove to be a fatal mistake. Back in his cell, Marcus sat quietly and waited. The ship's computer systems hummed around him, slowly being infiltrated by microscopic machines that were smaller than bacteria, but smarter than most organic brains. Soon, very soon, it would be time to show the Cytherians what humans were really capable of. The hunt was about to begin. 2 days after the interrogation, the problems began. Chief Engineer Mortax stood in the engine room staring at his diagnostic displays with growing frustration. Warning lights blinked red and yellow across multiple control panels. The ship's main computer was reporting system failures throughout the vessel. "Status report," Commander Zexthul demanded as he entered the engine room. His voice carried the edge of irritation that made his crew nervous. "Sir, we are experiencing cascading system failures," Mortax replied, his clawed hands dancing across the control panels. "It started small, just minor glitches like you said, but now it is spreading." "What kind of failures?" "Life support fluctuations on decks 7 and 12. Weapons targeting systems are offline. Navigation is showing random error messages. Even the food processors in the mess hall are malfunctioning." Zexthul's yellow eyes narrowed. "How is this possible? This ship passed all maintenance checks before departure." "I don't know, Commander. The failures don't follow any logical pattern. It's as if something is randomly attacking our systems from the inside." The commander studied the diagnostic displays. Each screen showed different problems in different parts of the ship. Nothing seemed connected, yet everything was failing at once. "Could this be sabotage?" Zexthul asked. "Impossible, sir. All crew members have been accounted for. The prisoners are secure in their cells. I've had teams checking every system manually and they find nothing wrong. But as soon as they finish repairs, something else breaks." Zexthul felt a cold sensation in his stomach. Something was very wrong on his ship and he didn't understand what it was. In his long military career, he had faced enemy fleets, rebel uprisings, and natural disasters. But this silent, invisible attack on his vessel was something new. "Double the security patrols," he ordered. "I want every corridor watched. Check the prisoners again. Someone or something is causing this." As the commander left the engine room, more alarms began sounding. The lights in the corridor flickered on and off. The gravity generator stuttered, causing everyone to float for a few seconds before dropping back to the deck. Marcus sat quietly in his cell, listening to the sounds of chaos growing throughout the ship. The nanites had spent 2 full days mapping every computer system, every circuit, every connection. Now they were beginning the next phase of their programming. The microscopic machines were not randomly destroying systems. Everything they did was carefully calculated. Life support failures were timed to create maximum confusion without actually killing anyone yet. Weapon systems were disabled to prevent the ship from fighting back. Navigation errors would make it impossible for the Cytherians to call for help or escape. Most importantly, the nanites were gathering information. They recorded conversations, copied files, and mapped the ship's entire database. Every secret about Cytherian military capabilities was being stored in Marcus's enhanced memory implants. The quantum weapons that Commander Zexthul had boasted about were real. Marcus now knew their exact location, how they worked, and how to disable them. The nanites had also discovered something even more valuable: the complete battle plans for the Cytherian Empire's next major offensive against human space. Hours passed, and the situation on the ship grew worse. Emergency lighting activated in some sections while others went completely dark. The artificial gravity failed completely on 3 decks. Crew members reported seeing strange shadows moving in the ventilation shafts. But when they investigated, they found nothing. Commander Zexthul stood on his bridge, watching his ship tear itself apart from the inside. His officers reported problems faster than they could be fixed. The crew was becoming scared and confused. "Sir," Lieutenant Vexikar said, approaching with obvious reluctance. "Some of the crew are saying the ship is cursed. They think we angered some kind of space demon." "Space demons are superstition," Zexthul growled. "This is sabotage, and I will find who is responsible." But deep down, the commander was beginning to doubt his own words. How could any normal saboteur cause problems like this? The failures were too widespread, too coordinated, too impossible for any single person to accomplish. That's when he remembered the strange human creature in the cells. "The prisoners," he said suddenly. "Bring me the alien from the unknown species. The small soft one, sir?" Vexkar looked confused. "That creature is harmless." "It can barely stand without shaking. Bring it to me now," Zexthul roared. "I want to see it with my own eyes." 20 minutes later, Marcus was dragged from his cell to the ship's main hangar bay. This was a massive space where the Catherians kept their fighter craft and landing shuttles. The ceiling was over 50 feet high, supported by thick metal beams. Emergency lights cast strange shadows across the walls. The entire crew had been assembled. Over 3,000 Catherian warriors stood in formation, their eyes fixed on the small human being brought before their commander. Many had never seen a creature like Marcus before. To them, he looked impossibly weak and fragile. Commander Zexthul stood on a raised platform in the center of the hangar. In his right hand, he held a plasma blade, its energy crackling with deadly power. The weapon could cut through solid steel like butter. "Bring the creature here," he commanded. The guards pushed Marcus forward until he stood directly in front of the platform. The human kept his head down, his body shaking as if from fear. The assembled crew murmured among themselves, some laughing at the pathetic sight. "Look at me," Zexthul ordered. Marcus slowly raised his head. His blue eyes met the commander's yellow ones. For a moment, something passed between them, something that made Zexthul pause. "You," the commander said, pointing the plasma blade at Marcus. "I think you are responsible for what is happening to my ship." Marcus said nothing. He just stared up at the massive alien warrior towering above him. "Impossible," someone in the crowd called out. "Look at it. It can barely stand." That creature couldn't sabotage a food dispenser, much less an entire starship. Another voice added. Zexthul studied Marcus more carefully. The human did appear weak and frightened. Its thin arms showed no muscle definition. Its soft skin had no natural protection. Everything about it suggested a creature built for peace, not war. But the commander's instincts were telling him something different. There was something in the human's eyes, something that didn't match its appearance of weakness. "You will tell me what you have done to my ship," Zexthul demanded, raising the plasma blade higher. Marcus looked around the hangar, taking in every detail. He counted the guards, noted their positions, calculated distances and angles. His enhanced hearing picked up the sound of the ship's systems continuing to fail around them. Then, for the first time since his capture, Marcus smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible. But in that moment, everyone in the hangar could see that something had changed. The weak, frightened creature was gone. In its place stood something else entirely. 3 mistakes, Marcus said quietly, his voice carrying clearly in the sudden silence. "What?" Zexthul demanded. Marcus straightened up, his posture shifting from cowering to confident. His hands, which had seemed weak and soft, now looked capable and dangerous. His blue eyes, which had appeared frightened, now seemed cold and calculating. "You made 3 mistakes, Commander," Marcus repeated, his voice stronger now. "First, you assumed that physical appearance equals capability. Second, you thought that fear was the same as weakness." The assembled Catherians stared in shock as the human they had dismissed as harmless began to transform before their eyes, not physically but in a way that was somehow more frightening. "And the third mistake?" Zexthul asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to know the answer. Marcus looked directly at him, and his smile grew wider. "You brought me exactly where I needed to be." At that moment, every light in the hangar went out. Emergency klaxons began wailing throughout the ship. The artificial gravity fluctuated wildly, causing some crew members to float helplessly while others were slammed to the deck. In the chaos and darkness, Marcus Chen disappeared. The hunt had begun. Emergency lighting flickered on throughout the hangar, casting red shadows across the chaos. Commander Zexthul stood on his platform, plasma blade in hand, staring at the empty space where the human had been just moments before. "Find it," he roared to his crew. "Search every corner of this ship. It cannot have gone far." But Marcus Chen was already 3 decks away, moving through the ventilation shafts he had memorized during his first day of captivity. His small size, which the Catherians had mocked as weakness, now became his greatest advantage. He could fit through spaces that would be impossible for the large alien warriors. The nanites had done their work perfectly. They had mapped every pathway through the ship, identified every weakness and prepared every trap. Now Marcus moved like a ghost through the vessel, invisible and deadly. Sergeant Clytor led a squad of 12 warriors through the lower decks, searching for the escaped prisoner. They moved in standard Catherian formation, plasma rifles ready, checking every room and corridor. "How could that soft creature just vanish?" one of the soldiers asked. "Keep your eyes open," Clytor replied. "The commander thinks it might be more dangerous than it looks." They approached a junction where 3 corridors met. The sergeant signaled for his squad to spread out and check each passage. As they moved into position, Marcus dropped silently from a ventilation grate above them. He landed behind the last soldier in line, his training taking over completely. In Earth's special forces, Marcus had learned to fight opponents much larger and stronger than himself. The key was speed, precision, and using the enemy's size against them. The Catherian soldier never knew what hit him. Marcus struck pressure points that his nanites had identified during his captivity, places where even the thick Catherian hide was vulnerable. The warrior dropped unconsciously to the deck. "Torvik?" Sergeant Clytor called out, hearing the sound of his soldier falling. "Report." But when he turned around, he saw only empty corridor. His soldier was gone, vanished as completely as the human prisoner. "Spread out," Clytor ordered. "Something is hunting us." The remaining soldiers backed together, forming a defensive circle. Their plasma rifles swept the shadows, looking for any sign of movement. But Marcus was already gone, having dragged the unconscious soldier into a maintenance shaft. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then one of the soldiers screamed. The warrior had been standing guard at the rear of the group when something grabbed his ankle and pulled him into a floor grating. His plasma rifle clattered to the deck as he disappeared into the ship's lower levels. "It's in the maintenance areas," Clytor shouted into his communicator. "The creature is using the ship's infrastructure against us." Commander Zexthal received the report on his bridge. Around him, his officers worked frantically to restore the ship's systems, but every repair was quickly undone by new failures. "How many casualties?" the commander demanded. 17 crew members missing so far," Lieutenant Vexcar reported. "No bodies found." "They just disappear. A single creature cannot defeat 17 trained warriors." "Sir, the reports are all the same. The soldiers see nothing, hear nothing, then one of them vanishes. Whatever this human is, it's not what we thought." Zexthal studied the tactical display showing his crew's positions throughout the ship. Red dots marked where soldiers had gone missing. There was no pattern, no logical progression. The humans seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. "Seal all maintenance areas," he ordered. "Cut power to the ventilation systems. Force it out into the open corridors where we can corner it." But Marcus had anticipated this response. As the maintenance shafts began sealing, he was already moving to the next phase of his plan. The nanites had identified the ship's armory, located 12 decks below the bridge. If he could reach it, he would have access to weapons designed for creatures much larger than himself. The armory was heavily guarded. 8 Catherian soldiers stood watch outside the reinforced doors, while more patrols moved through the surrounding corridors. But Marcus had something they didn't expect: complete knowledge of the ship's electrical and computer systems. He accessed a maintenance panel near the armory and connected directly to the ship's network through ports that the nanites had prepared. His enhanced nervous system interfaced with the alien computers, giving him control over lights, life support, and security systems in that section. The lights went out. Emergency klaxons began wailing. The artificial gravity reversed, sending the guards floating toward the ceiling. In the confusion, Marcus slipped past them and into the armory itself. The room was filled with weapons designed for Catherian physiology. Plasma rifles that were too heavy for human hands, energy swords meant for creatures with 4-foot reach, armor that would never fit a human body. But Marcus wasn't looking for conventional weapons. He was searching for something specific, something the nanites had detected during their survey of the ship's systems. He found it in a sealed container at the back of the armory, a Catherian demolition kit. The explosives were designed to breach starship hulls during boarding actions. In the right hands, they could do much more than that. As Marcus worked with the demolition charges, alarms throughout the ship announced new disasters. The life support systems were failing on multiple decks. Artificial gravity was fluctuating wildly. Most critically, the main reactor was showing signs of instability. Commander Zexthal left his bridge for the first time since the crisis began. He personally led a squad of his best warriors toward the last known position of the human intruder. His plasma blade hummed with deadly energy, and his yellow eyes burned with rage. "Sir," one of his officers called over the communicator, "the reactor is showing dangerous power fluctuations. Chief Engineer Mortax recommends immediate shutdown." "No," Zexthel roared. "If we shut down the reactor, we lose all power. We will be helpless." "But sir, if the reactor goes critical, find that human creature. Everything that is happening to this ship started when it came aboard." The commander and his squad moved through corridors filled with smoke and flashing emergency lights. They passed crew members working desperately to repair systems that failed faster than they could be fixed. Some areas of the ship were in complete darkness. Others had no gravity or breathable atmosphere. They reached the armory to find the guards unconscious and the door standing open. Inside, weapon racks had been emptied and equipment scattered across the floor. "It was here," Zexthel said, examining the scene. "But what was it looking for?" That's when he noticed the empty demolition kit container. "Explosives," he whispered. "It has taken explosives." A new sound echoed through the ship's corridors, the slow, steady beeping of a timer counting down. The sound seemed to come from everywhere at once, carried through the ventilation system and broadcast over the ship's communication network. "Commander," Chief Engineer Mortax's voice crackled over the intercom. "The reactor containment field is destabilizing. Something has placed explosive charges on the primary coolant lines." Zexthel realized with growing horror that the human had not just escaped. It had turned his entire ship into a weapon pointed at itself. Every system failure, every malfunction, every seemingly random problem had been building toward this moment. "How long until reactor breach?" he demanded. "At current rate of decay, maybe 20 minutes. The commander looked around at his remaining warriors. These were the finest soldiers in the Catherian Empire, veterans of dozens of campaigns. But they were facing an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered. "Sir," one of the warriors said quietly, "what kind of creature is this human?" Before Zexthel could answer, a voice spoke from the ship's communication system. It was calm, professional, and completely human. "Commander Zexthel," Marcus said, his voice echoing from speakers throughout the vessel. "I believe you wanted to know what humans are capable of. Now you know." The timer's beeping grew faster, and the lights throughout the ship began to dim as the reactor moved closer to critical failure. The creature they had dismissed as weak and harmless had turned their mighty warship into a tomb. And somewhere in the darkness of the failing vessel, Marcus Chen was still hunting. Commander Zexthel ran through the corridors of his dying ship, his massive form moving with desperate speed. Behind him, his remaining warriors struggled to keep up as emergency lights flickered and systems failed around them. The timer's beeping had grown faster, matching the rapid pulse of the reactor's instability. 15 minutes until complete meltdown. The ship's artificial gravity flickered on and off, sending crew members floating helplessly through the air. "Bridge to all personnel," Lieutenant Vexkar's voice crackled over the failing communication system. "Prepare for immediate evacuation. All hands to escape pods." But Zexthel had no intention of abandoning his ship, not to a creature he had dismissed as weak and pathetic. His pride as a Catherian warrior would not allow such defeat. "Commander," one of his soldiers gasped as they reached another sealed blast door. "We should retreat to the escape pods. The ship is lost." "No," Zexthel roared, his plasma blade cutting through the door's electronic lock. "I will find this human creature and end it with my own claws." They burst through the door into the ship's central command sector. Here, the damage was even worse. Sparks flew from damaged control panels. Smoke filled the air. Emergency klaxons wailed constantly, mixing with the ominous countdown of the reactor timer. "There," one of the warriors shouted, pointing down a side corridor. A small figure moved through the smoke and shadows, barely visible in the chaotic lighting. Marcus Chen walked calmly through the destruction, seemingly unbothered by the disaster unfolding around him. Zexthel charged forward, his plasma blade raised high. His warriors followed, their weapons trained on the human. But as they rounded the corner, they found themselves in the ship's main communications center. Marcus stood at the central control console, his hands moving quickly over the alien interface. The nanites in his bloodstream allowed him to connect directly to the ship's computer systems, giving him access to every database and communication array. "Stop," Zexthel commanded, his blade crackling with deadly energy. "Step away from those controls." Marcus turned slowly to face the Catherian commander. His expression was calm, almost peaceful. There was no fear in his blue eyes, only the cold calculation of a professional soldier completing his mission. "It's too late, Commander," Marcus said quietly. "The message has already been sent." "What message?" "The message that will save my species and doom yours." On the screens around them, data flowed in streams of alien text. The ship's long-range communication array was broadcasting on multiple frequencies, sending information across space to recipients throughout the galaxy. "I have uploaded everything," Marcus continued. "Complete technical specifications of your ships, weapons, and defensive systems. Detailed military plans for your next offensive against human space. The locations of your secret bases and supply routes." Sexthul stared at the screens in growing horror. Classified military information that had taken the Catherian Empire decades to develop was being transmitted to human intelligence networks. Battle plans that could have guaranteed victory were now in enemy hands. "But more importantly," Marcus said, "I'm sending them the quantum weapons you stole from our colonies." The commander's eyes widened. The quantum disruptors were the Empire's secret advantage. Weapons that could tear through human shields and armor like paper. With those weapons, the Catherians could have crushed human resistance in a matter of months. "The weapons are in Cargo Bay 7, Marcus continued. "I've set additional charges there. In 10 minutes, those quantum disruptors will be scattered across space as radioactive dust. Your secret advantage will be gone forever. You cannot do this," Zexthul screamed, raising his plasma blade. "I will kill you and stop this transmission." "The transmission is already complete," Marcus replied calmly. "And killing me won't help you. You see, Commander, I'm not the only one." He gestured to one of the communication screens where a tactical display showed the surrounding star system. Dozens of red dots marked the positions of Catherian ships and installations. "Right now, 47 other humans are completing similar missions throughout your fleet. Every ship that captured one of us is experiencing the same system failures. Every commander who underestimated us is learning the same lesson." Sexthul felt his world crumbling around him. The creature he had mocked as weak and harmless had orchestrated the largest intelligence breach in Catherian history. Worse, it had somehow coordinated with dozens of other humans to strike at the Empire's military forces simultaneously. "How?" he whispered. "How did you coordinate this? You had no communication with other humans." Marcus smiled, an expression that was somehow more terrifying than any roar of rage. "We didn't need to communicate, Commander. This is what humans do. We plan, we prepare, we adapt, and we use our enemy's own assumptions against them." The timer reached 5 minutes. Throughout the ship, explosions began as the charges Marcus had placed started detonating in sequence. The artificial gravity failed completely, sending debris floating through the corridors. "You wanted to know what makes humans dangerous," Marcus continued, his voice carrying clearly over the sound of the dying ship. "It's not our size or our strength. It's our minds. We study our enemies. We learn their weaknesses. We turn their advantages into disadvantages. You looked at me and saw prey, but I was never prey, Commander. I was a weapon. A weapon designed specifically to destroy ships like this and warriors like you." Zexthul lunged forward with his plasma blade, but Marcus was already moving. The human rolled to the side, his smaller size allowing him to dodge beneath the massive alien swing. As he moved, his hand found the emergency release for the communications center's blast shields. The room was suddenly sealed, trapping the Catherian warriors inside while Marcus slipped through a maintenance hatch that was too small for them to follow. 3 minutes until reactor breach. Marcus made his way through the ship's failing systems toward the escape pod bays. Around him, Catherian crew members ran in panic as their mighty warship tore itself apart. Many of them stared at him as he passed, finally understanding what kind of creature they had captured. He reached escape pod bay 12 just as the final warning klaxons began sounding. 2 minutes until complete reactor failure. The bay was filled with panicking Catherians trying to launch the few remaining escape pods. Marcus slipped past them to a smaller pod designed for reconnaissance missions. As he began the launch sequence, Commander Zexthul's voice echoed over the ship's communication system one last time. "All ships." The commander broadcast on the emergency frequency. "This is Commander Zexthul of the Dreadnought Void's Edge. I am sending this warning to all vessels of the Empire." Marcus paused, listening to the transmission as his escape pod prepared for launch. "The humans are not what they appear to be," Zexthul continued, his voice filled with defeat and growing understanding. They are not weak. They are not harmless. They are the most dangerous enemy we have ever faced. Beware the humans. They are not what they appear to be. They are not prey. They are predators, and we have gravely underestimated them. The transmission cut off as the Void's Edge's reactor finally went critical. Marcus launched his escape pod just as the massive dreadnought exploded in a brilliant flash of light that could be seen across the star system. As his small craft flew away from the expanding debris field, Marcus activated his own communication equipment. The message he sent was brief and professional, transmitted on encrypted frequencies to human military command. Mission accomplished. Primary target destroyed. Intelligence package transmitted. Quantum weapons neutralized. Cytherian fleet strength reduced by 30%. Recommend immediate implementation of Operation Prometheus. He leaned back in the pilot seat and allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The war between humanity and the Cytherian Empire had just taken a dramatic turn. The aliens who had seen humans as weak prey had learned too late that they were dealing with the most adaptable and dangerous species in the galaxy. 3 hours later, human battle fleets began jumping into Cytherian space. They came equipped with complete intelligence about enemy positions, weapons, and tactics. The quantum disruptors that should have given the Cytherians victory were gone, destroyed along with their carriers. The war would continue for several more months, but its outcome was no longer in doubt. The Cytherian Empire had made the fatal mistake of underestimating humanity. They had seen weakness where there was strength, fear where there was calculation, prey where there were predators. Commander Zexthol's final transmission became the Empire's epitaph. Beware the humans. They are not what they appear to be. By the time the surrender documents were signed on the former Cytherian homeworld, those words had become humanity's unofficial motto, and throughout the galaxy, other alien species took note and remembered. Never again would anyone make the mistake of judging humans by their appearance alone. Marcus Chen returned to Earth as a hero, but he knew the truth. He was just one weapon among many in humanity's vast arsenal, and somewhere out there in the darkness between the stars, other humans were preparing for the next threat, the next challenge, the next enemy who would underestimate the small, soft creatures from the planet called Earth. The hunt would continue. It always did.